2 trustworthy witnesses, and the mahar, the sadaq. So the dowry that's given, whether this is small in amount or it is plentiful amount. And whoever from the women does not have a wali, then the sultan, the ruler, is her wali. Whoever does not have the wali, whoever does not have a guardian. So this mas'ala here, what is mentioned, and this is as outlined, point 56. This is a mas'ala fiqhiyya. Now this is an issue regarding fiqh fi din. And with that, we've mentioned and we've gone through some of the points. We've gone through some points where Barbahārī mentions points in relation to manhaj. And he's gone through points in relation to the i'tiqād of Ahl Sunnah, the creed of Ahl Sunnah. And we've mentioned previously some points in relation to fiqh. Now, all of this is encompassing the Sunnah. So when Barbahārī is mentioning this kitab, Sharḥ as-Sunnah, is explaining that all these things are from the Sunnah, whether they be affairs of aqeedah, manhaj, or fiqh. Naam. So then remember what we mentioned from previous matters of fiqh in this text. Wiping over the socks. Now, masala khuffayn. Anyone else? Praying in the sarwal. Now I'm wearing the sarwal, the trousers. Also the shorts of the prayer for the traveller. All these things are mentioned. So here we've reached now the discussion regarding the nikah. The aqd nikah, the marriage contract. And Barbahārī, raḥimahullāh, he outlines the conditions in order for the nikah to be sahih, in order for the nikah to be a correct and valid nikah. So he's mentioned that there has to be a walī. There's no nikah except with a walī. So the guardian. Guardian represented whom? Represented who? The woman, the bride. So the guardian represents the bride. Then you have 2 trustworthy witnesses, and you have the mahar, the sadaq. So her dowry. With this speech here, barakallahu fikum, we understand that the first point is in relation to the wali, the guardian. And this is in accordance with the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, لا نكاح إلا بولي وشاهدي وعدل. Now, وشاهدي عدل. And so this is based on the hadith which is found in Sunnah al-Tirmidhi and the Sunnah of Abu Dawood, where he says there's no nikah, there's no valid marriage except with the wali, except with the guardian. Naam. And this is the opinion of the Jamhur. So the majority of the scholars have the opinion that the nikah needs, in order for the nikah to be valid, the marriage to be valid, there needs to be a wali, there needs to be a guardian. We mentioned, as we've been going through this in Umdat al-Fiqh, we mentioned this particular matter of the wilaya, now the guardianship. And who is of the opinion that there's not a need for a wali? You don't need the wali. Which madhab? The Abu Hanifa, naam, the Hanafi madhab. They don't remember what the reason was he gives. They don't remember the reason. Why did he say that this is not needed? You remember? Something to do with business. You remember? They would state, the madhab states, that the woman does not need her guardian in order to do business, in order to trade. Now, the woman does not need her guardian in order to trade. And so, because al-buyu', trading, is from the mu'amalat, the ahkam, the rulings when it comes to the dealings, and likewise nikah, marriage, is from the rules that come to that is in relation to the dealings, that the woman does not need a wali for her marriage. Does that make sense? So it says because she doesn't need it for the trading, she doesn't need it for the marriage, because they're both similar from the similar chapter or similar aspects of fiqh. How do we respond to that? What is the response to that? The hadith. Naam, the hadith. When the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he mentions very clearly, there's no nikah except with the walī. There's no nikah except with the guardian. So now, Abu Hanifa, in relation to this, he makes qiyas upon biyu'. So he makes that comparison and he seeks to derive the ruling from the ruling that's already present with buying and selling. However, if you have qiyas, now so you seek to derive a ruling from another, but you have a text, a clear text that opposes that, then the text takes precedence. So in this case, the text is clear. There's no nikah except with the walī. There's no nikah except with the walī. So, and thereafter, we have our second condition, which is the shahiday. Second condition is with the nikah needs the two witnesses. Now, the two witnesses, as long as these two witnesses are upright, now trustworthy. When it mentions here, barakallahu feekum, two witnesses, then, as is mentioned previously, the two witnesses, this is something which is the minimal number. So if the nikah is done and it's done in front of many people, then this is a valid nikah. It's a valid marriage. But when it mentions two is the minimal number that is needed. Now, in order for that nikah to be one which is valid, for him to barakallahu fi. And so, if now, for example, the marriage, you see this in many, for the majority of the times, with a nikah, it might be done in front of many people. They're on the stage, there's all the people looking on. Now, and inshallah, there's from amongst the people are those that are upright and adil. So this of course, this nikah is valid, even if they, for example, they didn't stipulate or mention specifically fulan and fulan, this person are the witnesses. Does that make sense? So even if they didn't say, for example, fulan and fulan is a witness, but because there's all these people that witness the nikah being done, then this is a valid marriage. So thereafter, he goes on to mention as well this matter of the mahr, the sadaq. And Shaykh Fawzān, he mentions, أما الصداق فليس شرطا لكنه واجب. So as for the mahr, it's not a shart, it's not a condition. However, it is an obligation. Now, it's obligatory for a person to pay some form of mahr, but it's not now a condition. So let's say, for example, an individual, he doesn't pay the mahr. Now, the man doesn't pay the mahr. Then this does not now render the marriage contract nullified. Okay, it doesn't nullify the marriage contract. However, the individual has not paid that mahr, so he is athim. Now, he's blameworthy for that. He's sinful. So, because he's opposed and he's left off an obligation. And so it mentions, and the Shaykh goes to mention, ولهذا لو أكد بدون صداق صح العقد. And so due to that, if the contract is made without the mahr, then the contract is valid. And with that, the mahr, the dowry, becomes an obligation. So once the contract is made, even if there's no specific dowry stipulated, then now the contract is an obligation. So along with that, we understand. So really and truly, what is needed to be in place in order for a marriage to be valid, its validity, is that it has the walī, or someone in the place of the walī, the groom, or someone in the place of the groom, and two witnesses. Now, these are the three things that are needed. Is that clear, barakallahu feekum? So these are the things that need to be in place, the conditions. As for the pillars of the marriage itself, the marriage contract itself, Then you have two pillars. Now you have the offering, hijab, and the acceptance, the qabul. So the offering, of course, is done by the walī. So the walī, he will offer the bride. So if it's the case, for example, it's his daughter, offers the daughter to the groom. And then the second pillar, in order to conclude that marriage contract, is the acceptance. Now is the acceptance, and acceptance is done by the groom. So, as for the sunan that are found within the marriage contract, from the sunan is the mentioning or the recital of khutbat al-haja. That's the khutbat al-haja recited, and this is from the sunan of the marriage. Now, it's not an obligation, nor is it a condition. So if the marriage contract is concluded without the khutbat al-hajj, then the marriage contract is still valid. It's still valid, barakallahu fikum. Likewise, from the sunan of the marriage is that it's concluded with the dua in accordance with the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where he mentions the dua, barakallahu lak wa baraka alayk wa jama baynakuma fi khayr. And may Allah Ta'ala's blessings before you and upon the both of you, join the two of you in good. That this particular dua is also mentioned, barakallahu fikum. This is essentially what we understand from the nikah. So the nikah has its conditions, has its pillars, has its sunan. Has its sunan, has its wajibat and its sunan. So the conditions are what, barakallahu fikum? What would you say the conditions are? In order for the marriage contract to be valid. What are the conditions for that marriage contract to be valid? The walī is one. Witnesses, how many? Two at least. And the groom. So those are three people that need to be in place. The three types of people that need to be in place. Does there need to be an imam? Does there need to be an imam? Not necessarily. Does there need to be an imam? We're talking about sihat nikah, in order for nikah to be valid. No? You sure? No. There doesn't need to be an imam. Essentially, the imam is there for two purposes, really. One is to read the khutbat al-haja, in accordance with the sunnah. Secondly, is that he's going to guide the people through the process. Now, and make sure that everyone does whatever they're supposed to do for the process. Does that make sense, barakallahu fikum? But it's not a case now where you have to have an imam there. And we gave an example. Do you remember we gave the example of, there's a story that we told when we were discussing the Kitab al-Nikah previously, where a man said jokingly to his friend, what? What did he say to his friend jokingly? That he would marry his daughter. He said that he would marry his daughter to his friend. He said it jokingly. And his friend jokingly said, what? Back? I accept. Na'am. And he said this in the presence of people. So they fulfilled all of the conditions. Na'am. We had the walī, it was the father. He offered. Then we had the acceptance from the groom. The groom was there. And there were witnesses there. There were more than one person there. More than two people there, sorry. And so now this is a valid marriage. So, point being is there was no imam there. Now there was no imam there. So those are three conditions. Then we have the two essential pillars. Two pillars. I mentioned, I'm sure Kanye describes them as pillars as well. What are two pillars? The offering and the acceptance. The offering by the walī and the acceptance by the groom. Jade. Then we have the wajibat. What are the wajibat? What are the wajibat in this regard? The mahar. Now the mahar is the wajib. And then we have the sunan. Then we have the sunan, which are recital of khutbah al-haja and the dua at the end as well, for example. Also, along with that, we have different actions of bid'ah within the marriages. Now, bid'ah within the marriages, which are not, of course, not permissible. From them is that people specify the recitation of Quran during the nikah process. Now, so recitation of Quran during the nikah process. And so they will say that you should recite these ayat about marriage. And how many times you've seen this? Now they'll bring up someone that they deem to be someone that has good recitation of Quran, and he'll just recite ayat. Sometimes maybe not even ayat about marriage. He'll just recite. Now this is one of those innovations that you find in that regard. So then of course as well you have the actions which are generally acts of sin and transgression, whether that be ikhtilat, the free mixing, whether that be tasweer, the picture making, the photography, music, and that which is worse than that. Shaykh bin Baz, raḥimahullāh, he was asked about attending such weddings. Shaykh bin Baz was asked about attending such weddings, in terms of the weddings where these evils occur. And his answer was clear. His answer, raḥimahullah, was that you do not attend unless you have the ability to warn against the evil found there within. So you do not attend unless you have the ability, you have the ability to go there and warn against and change the evil that's occurring there. Now, and if you do not have that ability, then the person avoids it. The person avoids such gatherings. Allah Ta'ala knows best. And so this is essentially how the marriage is fulfilled. Now, when it comes to the wilaya, the guardianship, or when it comes to the matter of the groom, each of these two can appoint someone else to fulfill the marriage contract on their behalf. So the walī, he can appoint someone to be the wakil on his behalf and represent the bride on his behalf. Likewise, the groom can appoint someone to represent someone on his behalf. Both of them are permissible. Barakallahu feekum. واضح يا إخوة. Clear? جيد. Thereafter, the author he mentions, ومن لم يكن لها ولي فالسلطان ولي من لا ولي له. And so the wali essentially is from, the wali generally speaking is from the family of that woman, the family of that woman. So from her father and her grandfather growing up, then the sons, type, and grandsons and going down, and then brothers. So anyone that's related to her. If now she does not have a valid wali, then the wali becomes the sultan and the wali al-amr. So now it's the ruler that's the wali. The ruler is the wali, is the guardian for that woman. And so of course, what you find, this may occur for maybe a woman that does not have any family left, or for a woman that's embraced Islam. For the conditions in order for someone to be a valid wali is that there's no ikhtilaf ad-din, and they do not share a different religion. So now, for example, a Christian father cannot be a wali for his Muslim daughter. Now, so ikhtilaf ad-din, different, they share a different religion, now means that, or they have a different religion from one another, now means that they cannot be, he cannot be a wali for her. Type. So now in a scenario that is of course common, where the woman has embraced Islam, and so thus she has a different religion, not only from her father, but a different religion from all of her family. So she's a Muslimah, and the rest of her family are upon other than Islam, whether they're Christian, Jews, whatever they may be. In this scenario, the Walī al-Amr would now be her guardian. So the ruler will be her guardian. So if it's in the Muslim land, then of course the ruler will be her guardian, and the ruler may appoint someone to oversee the matter of her guardianship. Is that clear, Barakallahu Feekum? So the ruler will oversee someone, or appoint someone to oversee it. What's of course common as well with this particular mas'ala is if the woman is from a family that is, or is in a non-Muslim country, sorry. So the woman is in a non-Muslim country, a non-Muslim land. If the woman is in a non-Muslim land, such as here, then with that, it's the Marakiz Islamiyya, so the Islamic centers, the Salafi Marakiz, that will establish this particular matter of the guardianship. Salafi Marakiz will establish the guardianship. Naam, over and above that particular matter in deen. Is that clear, Barakallahu Feekum? The Markaz, the Salafi Markaz, would appoint an individual, and he's the wakil for that woman. So, for example, we're here in Markaz Salafi, Manchester. Markaz Salafi, for example, takes the responsibility of a woman that has embraced Islam and she wishes to marry. And then Markaz Salafi appoints someone from within the community that they regard as being upright and they regard as being responsible, and they appoint that individual to be the walī. They appoint that individual to, or the wakil essentially. And so this is the case for the one or for the woman that does not have a walī, and Allah Ta'ala knows best. So thereafter, Barbahārī mentions the next point regarding الطلاق, divorce. Now, تفضل عباس. وإذا طلق الرجل.
إذا طلق الرجل أخته ثلاثا فقد حرمت عليه لا تحل له حتى تنكح زوجا غيره.
نعم. Zisha, you have the English now? تفضل.
The author said, if a man divorces his wife 3 times, she becomes unlawful to him. She is unlawful to him until she marries other than him.
نعم. She becomes unlawful to him until she marries other than him. This is regarding the divorce, which is regarded as which is referred to as the talaq, which is ba'in. A talaq, which is ba'in. So the irrevocable divorce. Now, irrevocable divorce, where the man now has divorced the woman 3 times. Now, he's divorced the woman 3 times. Alaikum salam. In this scenario, if he's divorced the woman 3 times, he's not able to return that wife, take that wife back. So the divorce, we understand, is of 2 types. Divorce is of 2 types. One, which is the revocable. Talaq raj'iyya. Or talaq al-raj'i. Where the man is permitted to take her back. In this case, the divorce is, if he divorces her once, then he is permitted to take that wife back within her iddah period. So if he divorces her once, her iddah period is for 3 menstrual cycles. Now, the iddah period is for 3 menstrual cycles. Those 3 menstrual cycles, if the husband makes a decision to take her back, then he is permitted to do so. He is permitted to do so within these 3 months. Within this iddah period, it's important to note here, because it's something that للأسف الشديد, it's sad to say that it's something that you do not see practiced often enough, is that during the iddah period, the woman should remain within the home of her husband. She remains within the home of her husband, and she fulfills the rights of her husband, and the husband fulfills the rights of the wife for that iddah period. Now, even to the extent where Shaykh Uthaymeen, raḥimahullāh, he mentions that the woman remains within the home and beautifies herself within the home for her husband. So all of the rights are fulfilled except for the right of the marital relations. Why? Because if that right was established, then this would constitute him taking her back. So for these 3 months, they both observe each other's rights. Both observe each other's spousal rights. The hikmah regarding this iddah period are many. From them is that it's a means of establishing whether or not the woman is pregnant, whether or not the woman is carrying a child. Because now, of course, if she's carrying a child, it means, or if it's established that she is pregnant, then this is now an extension of her iddah period. Her iddah period now is no longer a free menstrual cycle, because for the most part, the woman is not going to have a menstrual cycle whilst pregnant, but the iddah period lasts the length of her pregnancy. The iddah period will last until she gives birth, essentially. So the first benefit is to establish whether this iddah period or whether this woman is pregnant. The second is a means of ascertaining whether the husband and the wife truly wish to separate. Whether the husband and wife truly wish to separate. But then if you contemplate the scenario where the man divorces his wife and
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر.
Allah.
لا إله إلا الله.
Now, likewise as well, with this particular point here, is that if you contemplate the scenario where if now a man was to divorce his wife, but for 3 months, they live together, they observe each other's rights, and after those 3 months have elapsed, he still decides that he wishes to divorce her. Now, and this is something which could be said as a decision that's been made upon clear contemplation, and a decision where it could be said that he's absolutely certain that he does not want to remain within that marriage. However, if people now practice this matter, as many do, where the divorce is mentioned, and it may be within that same lahza, within that same moment that divorce is mentioned, the woman is already packing her bags and moving out of the house. Then that separation, the husband and wife being distant from one another, physically distant, does not allow anything except for more tashwish and mischief and wasawis from the shaitan. And it does not allow, it's not a conducive scenario or conducive environment for يعني إصلاح, for rectification. But now, if the husband and wife lived with each other for 3 months, observed each other's rights, then it cannot be said that they did not exhaust all avenues in order to try and rectify that marriage. And if they still make the decision to separate, then they make the decision to separate. If now, after those 3 months, the husband continues with the divorce, so he doesn't take her back, essentially. And then after that 3-month period, he decides to take her back. Upon him now is to do a whole new aqdun nikah. Upon him is to do a whole new marriage contract with those same points that we mentioned previously. So a whole new marriage contract needs to be done with the same conditions. Now, a whole new marriage contract needs to be done with the same pillars, the same obligations, the same sunnah should be done as well. Now, because there's a new marriage contract. But now, if, for example, the man was to divorce the wife, he didn't take her back, then there's a new marriage contract. With that new contract, doesn't now mean that he's permitted to divorce her 3 times again. No, rather, he only has 2 remaining. Now, he only has 2 remaining. So once he's divorced her, whether he takes her back or not, he only has 2 remaining. Okay? And that's likewise for the second, then you only have 1 remaining. What Imām al-Barbahārī here is referring to is if the man divorces the wife 3 times. So, for example, he's divorced her, took her back. Divorced her again, took her back. Then he divorced her for the 3rd time. Then, in this scenario, he's not permitted to take her back until she marries another individual. And as Ahlul Ilm, they mention, it's not only the marriage is done by way of the aqd nikah, the marriage contract, but the marriage is consummated as well. The marriage has to be done and has to be consummated in order for the man to even be permitted to take her back. Likewise as well, this marriage needs to be one which is a genuine marriage. So it's not as some do where they will seek to marry someone in order to make the woman halal for the ex-husband again. No, it needs to be done with the intent of marrying and remaining with that individual. Any marriage which is done with the intent of divorce at any point is a marriage which is null and void. It's a marriage is not valid. Of course, this is based on someone's intent, but it's a marriage which is not valid. Also, in relation to this matter of the man divorcing the wife 3 times, is if the man mentions the talaq 3 times in one go. So he divorces the wife 3 times. If he mentions these words of divorce 3 times, with the intent of each and every one of them being a divorce. So each and every one of those mentionings being a divorce. So he intends divorce. Each time he mentions it in one go, he intends 3 different divorces. Then there's an ikhtilaf amongst Ahlul Ilm. The scholars differ. But the stronger opinion is that he has divorced her 3 times. He's divorced her 3 times. And so as a result of that, now it is not permissible for him to take her back until she marries another man. With that being said, now he's divorced her 3 times. He's done it in that particular manner. But this, as the scholars mentioned, even though it is a valid divorce, he has now divorced her, it now is a bid'ah. Now, so it's innovated. It's an innovative practice in terms of divorce. Does that make sense? So even though it's valid, he can still be sinful because he's fallen into bid'ah. He's fallen into innovation. Likewise, what can be from the innovative practices of divorce is that the man divorces the wife while she is on the menses. So divorces the wife upon the menses. This is now, again, an innovative practice with divorce. Or, for example, the man does not wait. So what is established from the Sharia is that the man that intends to divorce the wife, then he waits. If he has had marital relations with her within that period of time, he waits for her to have 1 menstrual cycle, have the menses, then become purified, and then he's permitted to divorce her. And he should not divorce her at any point before that. Now, is that clear, Barakallahu Feek? He should not divorce her at any point before that. When this now is established, when this matter is now established, then alhamdulillah, this is a divorce which is in accordance with the Sunnah of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. Whilst anything outside of that could be regarded as being an innovation. Going back now as well to the mentioning of the divorce, I demand that divorces 3 times in one go. This is now also dependent upon the man's niyyah, his intention. If the man, this is why we mentioned that the man, he intends 3 divorces. And this is something where people erroneously believe that, and if they wish to divorce the woman, that they have to state it 3 times. Naam, they have to state this word 3 times. If they do that, then the 3 divorces have occurred. Even if it's based upon his jahl, even if it's based upon his ignorance. But now, if the man has stated these words, but then he states the word of divorce, then he states it again. But when he states it again, he's stating it for emphasis. So he's not now saying, a second divorce, or then a 3rd divorce. But he's stating it for emphasis. It's possible that he is fi hal ghadab. Now he's in a scenario, or he's in a condition, his condition at that time is where he has a heightened sense or heightened emotion of anger. So he stated something and he states something again. He states something and he states something again. Why? For emphasis. Then this would not count as the 3. Now, it's important to mention that it's the person's intent. Just as we understand as well when it comes to the talaq, which is the kinaya. So when it is the indirect wording used for the talaq. So if a man was to say to his wife, for example, go back to your parents' home, or go to your parents' home. Because there is no wording which is sarih, so no direct wording which is used in terms of talaq, which is used in terms of the divorce, then it is not regarded as these words by themselves being words of divorce. However, if by way of those words he intends divorce, now he intends separation, then what is established with that, barakallahu feekum, that it is a divorce. Now, so it's based upon the man. If, for example, he's brought before the qadi, brought before the judge, and that case is brought forth, upon him is to fear Allah. Upon him as an individual is to fear Allah and state, whether it's intended, whether he intended divorce by way of statement or whether he did not. And if he says, for example, he did not, but he really did intend divorce, then this is an amr, this is an affair which is between him and Allah. This is a matter which is between him and Allah. Why? Because now, if he has stated these words and he intended that, فَيَتَرَتَّبْ عَلَيْهِ أُمُورٍ, there are many ahkam that are built upon that now. Because if now, for example, he has stated these words and he intended divorce, then the woman now is divorced. And if now, for example, it was the last divorce, then he's not permitted to stay with her. If he does stay with her, or if now, for example, he stays with her, and of course she doesn't know his niyyah, so it's upon him. So he stays with her, and with that now, any form of relations or anything like that will come back to him being athim, being blameworthy and sinful. Because he's not permitted to remain with that wife. And if, for example, it is the 1st divorce or the 2nd divorce, then any marital relations would now mean that he has taken her back. But any subsequent divorce after that would count as the 2nd or the 3rd. So now, if the man is not truthful, he now takes the burden and responsibility over anything that occurs after that. So this is in relation to the indirect divorce, the wording which is used indirectly, or in relation to, as we mentioned, the mas'ala, if the man is mentioned in the divorce 3 times, but he intended 3 divorces. But then he states that he intended these wordings as emphasis. So if he's lying in that regard, then this is between, again, him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah ta'ala knows best. ونكتفي بهذا القدر. بارك الله فيكم وجزاكم الله خيرا وصلى الله وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. جزاكم الله خير.